everybody, this is Pastor Joel. I wanted to share a word with you from Deuteronomy 15 today about generosity. And since it's the holiday season, we're already kind of thinking that way. Many of us are thinking about how we just want to make somebody in our life really happy, or maybe many somebodies in our life. It's a time where we go out of our way to give that perfect gift to people that we care about. And I want to show you how God, his way of having us think as his people is so different than what's normal. I'm going to show you something, a policy that he instituted in Israel in Deuteronomy chapter 15. So starting in verse 1, he said, "At the end of every 7 years, you shall grant a remission of debts." And that means anybody who owes you anything, at the end of 7 years, the debt is canceled. This is the matter of remission. Every creditor shall release what he's loaned to his neighbor. So you see, it's not like banks and borrowers. It's friends and family and neighbors and people who've just had loans to each other to help each other out. He shall not exact it of his neighbor and his brother, because the Lord's remission has been proclaimed. He's saying you cannot collect the debt past that point. From a foreigner you may exact it, but your hand shall release whatever of yours is with your brother. So he's talking about fellow Israelites. He's saying you can collect it if it's owed to you by someone who does not belong to the people of God. But if they do, then the debt has to be canceled. However, in verse 4, he says, "There will be no poor among you." That's a profound statement, right? "Since the Lord will surely bless you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess. If only you listen obediently," and that's an important word, "to the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all this commandment which I'm commanding you today," all this. "For the Lord your God will bless you as he has promised you, and you will lend to many nations, but you will not borrow. And you will rule over many nations, but they will not rule over you." So God sets his people up with a promise of tremendous blessing if they'll just obey him. And he sets a precedent and a standard, and he says every 7 years, they call it the year of Jubilee, and you can understand why. Jubilee means great rejoicing. Well, all the debts are canceled. So everybody goes back to zero. Well, God sees what's in the human heart, and even you, if you're thinking about this whole principle of all debts being canceled every 7 years, and you're a person with any resources who's ever loaned anybody money, then you're thinking right now about all the problems and issues that come up with a policy like that. Well, God is very wise and not ignorant to such things. What he was bringing through in all this was the relationship between obedience and his blessing, because he's saying, if I'm blessing you, you'll never run out of resources in order to be able to be a blessing to other people. And you're seeing resources as limited only because you're not thinking about my blessing. And he's saying also, after you've given, after you've obeyed, then I will bless you. So if you obey me, if you follow me, you can't go wrong. In verse 7, though, God goes into a little bit more, and he says, "If there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers." So he said earlier there weren't going to be any poor, but now he says, if there's a poor man in any of your towns, in your land, which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart, nor close your hand from your poor brother, but you shall freely open your hand to him, and shall generously lend him sufficient for his need in whatever he lacks. He's talking about meeting his needs without questions. Just, what do you need? And if I can help you, I will. "Beware," he says, "there is no base thought in your heart." Listen to this. God knows us so well. Saying, the 7th year, the year of remission is near. If I give him this in the form of a loan, especially, next year it's going to get canceled. I'm not going to get it back. He's saying, don't let that thought into your heart. Do not let your eye be hostile toward your poor brother and you give him nothing. You say, well, I can't give it to you because it'll get canceled next year. He says, then he may cry against the Lord against you, or may cry to the Lord against you, and it will be a sin in you. You shall generously give to him, and your heart shall not be grieved when you give to him, no regrets. Because for this thing the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in all your undertakings. For the poor will never cease to be in the land. Therefore I command you, saying, you shall freely open your hand to your brother, to your needy and the poor in your land. So I want to challenge you during this season right now when we're thinking so much about how we want to bless people that we know and love, to expand the reach of your generosity and to have your eyes on the poor of the land, and not to let evil thoughts enter our hearts of like, what's this person going to do with this if I give it to him? We have all these kind of thoughts, and we have to be wise. We do. If the Lord says no, we don't. And if he says yes, we do. But the idea is that we give generously and we help out one another in any way that we can. So if you know anyone who has a need and you want to make it known to the church leadership and we can help, we'd like to partner with you in those kinds of things. But if there's something you can do that would just be a blessing, I want to encourage you to do it, then to look for something and to know that God's blessing will follow right after. And his idea of there not being poor in the land is really that through our generosity to one another, there would not be poor in the land. But the reality of people in poverty is a constant reality. But God's command was to solve that problem in that we all would be generous and kind and thoughtful toward one another from a generous heart, not under obligation. So let the Lord be at work in your heart and let him open up your heart to be generous. We have nothing we haven't received. We have received what we have from him. And so what we give in passing along a blessing. So that's all I have for you guys. Be blessed and enjoy the holiday season, and may the Lord be glorified.